Good evening, everyone. This is Reading for Charity again. Currently reading for the Archie Foundation. It's a fantastic charity. It helps sick kids in the northeast of Scotland. This read is 100 books in a year. Attempting to manage that. It's 42,000 pages. Everything's been done by donation, so everyone has took 100 donations to get to this point. 100 books. People have been very generous. It's a really good thing so far. Hoping to raise more money for the Archie Foundation, and maybe do this again at some point. But yes, this is going to be a quick one this week. Today's one is going to be Ancillary Sword. Let's make sure I hold up the right one, because all the covers kind of look similar to each other. So it's like, which one am I supposed to be holding up again? Ancillary Sword, which is the middle book of the trilogy for the Ancillary books. I hadn't actually realised quite how recent these all were. This was last year, Ancillary Sword, and Mercy, I think, was only out this year. So the fact I managed to pick it up for pennies in a charity shop is hugely surprising to me. Normally you don't pick up the brand new stuff for a while, but yeah, there you go. Yes. Back to the book, Ancillary Sword. So this, I think, solved a lot of the problems that I had with Ancillary Justice. So when I recorded the review for Ancillary Justice on Monday, I'd already read a chunk of Ancillary Sword, and I kind of knew already what was coming from Ancillary Sword, in that it's fixed a lot of the problems that I had with Ancillary Justice. So obviously, either an editor sat down with Anne Leckie, or she sat down herself and worked out some of the problems. And one of the biggest problems with it was, as I said, was the because she was so determined not to give any hints about gender, she turned all the characters into amorphous blobs completely. And she's kind of fixed that problem in Ancillary Sword by kind of flopping the absolute other way. So she still maintains the gender neutrality, but by referring to everyone as their name. So there's very few she's in the book, but there's a lot of X did this and Y did this and Z did that. So the amount of pronouns in this book, there's probably less than a tenth of the pronouns in this book than there was in Ancillary Justice, which means that the whole thing is an awful lot easier to understand. There was only one instance I had through Ancillary Sword where I was actually confused about what was going on thanks to the gender neutral pronouns thing, and that was when someone was referred to as another character's mother. Except you didn't know they were referring to that character as another character's mother, they just referred to X's mother. And you didn't know whether it was the character we'd already been introduced to, or a character off screen, because there had been no... there'd only be one parent introduced at that point, and you couldn't tell, because without any form of hint as to what was going on, you're like, well, I'm confused. I'll reread the section again. Okay, I think they mean the character that was already introduced, but maybe not. So there was only one instance. It was a lot less frustrating than Ancillary Justice was in every way, shape, and form. So, despite Ancillary Justice being the one that won, the Hugo Award, the Nebula Award, the Arthur C. Clarke Award, I think Ancillary Sword is by far the better book. It solved a lot of the problems that Justice had. Actually increases the story and the world building, and still having a bit more coherence than Justice did. In Justice, there was an awful lot of things that went on, and you're not entirely sure why. You're not entirely sure why Breck saved Steven in the first place. You're not entirely sure why Breck did some of the things. And the reveal of the anger and of the Lord of the Rash doesn't really fix some of the questions as to why Breck did what she did. That kind of follows it through again in Ancillary Sword. Now you know kind of more about Breck and where she's coming from. There's more explained from Breck's point of view in Ancillary Sword as to why she's making the particular decisions. And so it's much more coherent. I found it interesting that after my rant about the Lord of the Rash, not being able to expand infinitely because, how they have the technology where all parts of her could be kept in sync at all times. They actually spend a chunk of the book of Sword talking about the fact that she couldn't keep herself in sync at all times, and that a single thought, would spend a week travelling from one end of the Empire to the other through her clones. And it's confirmed to be clones as well. So that kind of one solves one of the problems, which is how does everyone know what the Lord looks like? That's because they're all identical. And also solves the problem of how do they keep each other in sync? They do it by, well, passing messages essentially. So you know, it's a packet switch network, if you like, of information. It'd be interesting to see, and it's not discussed in the book, but when you start thinking around those lines, and this is where the engineering part comes out again, what happens when you get a collision? What happens when you get two conflicting thoughts happening at the same time, reaching the same point? You know, one group at one end says, you know, tomatoes are the greatest thing ever, and another group at the other end says tomatoes are the worst thing ever. They meet in the middle, and the one in the middle is like, what information do I pass on? How do I process these two conflicting thoughts? It's a silly idea. It remains a silly idea. And the point that's made in the book is that, you know, the separate nodes, if you like, of the Lord, of Minai, at some point would always have to fracture. And yes, that point is entirely self-evident. You know, just even thinking about the problem for even a few minutes, you realise that just, you know, the information switching issue would cause, you know, fractures and you know, information collisions to happen. So it was a stupid idea to begin with, so why did the Lord do it? Because it guarantees civil war amongst herself. So yes, I understand that it's a MacGuffin in order to further the plot, but it's a stupid MacGuffin. And as we all know, nerds hate stupid MacGuffins, and it's a stupid MacGuffin. So that's my major complaint is out the road, that it's well, one of my two major complaints about this book is out the road, in that the MacGuffin is still stupid. The world building is still nice. Very, very nice. But you do wonder why the Lord doesn't just, you know, clone herself infinitely, which is kind of where I think I may have had that rant in the last review. If she clones herself infinitely, then essentially the whole of the Empire is her, and she doesn't need all those other messy people that seem to be the ones causing the problem for her. I don't understand why that logic it hasn't been followed through, because she's completely cold-hearted about everything else. But anyway, my other major problem with this book, I'll get that out of the way as well, is the ending, which is supremely lackluster. Supremely lackluster, and also very much goes against everything else that happens in the book. So, through the book, Breck continually sees images in her head of the other members of her crew, things that Ship wants her to see, or things that she requests to see. Now, at the end of the book, she is followed by two members of her crew to what she thinks is a private meeting. Ambush. You know, she's fairly sure it's an ambush anyway, but to a private meeting, which is an ambush. Now, all the way through, Ship would show her images of things that the Ship deemed important. Ship would have deemed that to be important, and therefore would have shown her the image of that she was being followed. It doesn't. You know, in order to allow dramatic events to happen. So it's frustrating because it goes against what's been set in the book already. Also, the whole ship's captain being evil thing. We knew that was the case already. We knew the ship's captain was evil, and we knew that there was issues. And they'd implied it all the way through, and it was kind of obvious. I mean, there was enough evidence to show it was, and the fact that Breck did nothing about it until she found some sort of massively conclusive evidence, where previously she was quite happy to just go, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know you're bad. Get out of here. She could have completely have done that at an earlier time, solved an awful lot of problems. And lastly, she's armed with the gun during the final fight, and is ancillary and is massively more dangerous than anyone else is aware, and decides to shoot the hull rather than what she should have done, which was gone bang, bang, bang. Right, okay, move on. I've saved everyone. It's. I don't understand why she submits to the struggle with the other ancillaries, why she shoots the hull. There's an awful lot of confusing nonsense at the end. It's a very, very lackluster ending. It comes on very, very quickly, and because it kind of goes, because it literally is, oh, everything's fine, everything's good, I've solved this last problem. Oh my god, we're in the final scene. it's so abrupt, and there's no lead into it. There's no tension leading into it. It's basically everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. No, it's not very well written. And I get the feeling all the way through this book that she was writing this one with a view to TV or film more than book. So the idea of the Undergarden, is visually very striking. The area that she moves into, the idea of the garden itself is visually very striking. The end point, which is the fight in the garden above the Black Dome, is also visually very striking. But don't lend themselves to the book so much. There's better ways to do these things. Especially when it comes to the Undergarden, which you kind of feel is in there to mimic what's going on the planet, which is, an undertrodden underclass. I want to use the word servile, but they're really not. An underclass, on the station and on the ground. And in the first book, there was, the underclass on oars as well. So all the way through, showing that there's the underclass that Brett kind of ends up fighting for. Being the hero fighting for the little man. That's kind of the idea that Lecky's pushed for him. It. No idea. Them. Singular. But the reason why that's a mistake with the Undergarden is that, as shown elsewhere, the people value their privacy very highly, especially on a station where the AI is constantly watching. Now, the Undergarden is a section which was damaged and the AI cannot see into. So, rather than letting it go to waste, which is what they do and they let undesirables move in, all of the rich people would be moving into there, doing all their deals there, doing all the things there that they didn't want the station or the sector governor or the military to see. The rich would have moved straight into there. It would have been a position of luxury in the Undergarden due to the privacy it would have afforded people. And, and we see that in the real world, and we see that already in the world that Ann Leckie has created. So for that not to have happened purely to provide an underclass and a visually striking area for the underclass to live in is irritating to me. Again, it's not immersion breaking, but it's world breaking. She builds a lot of good things into this world and then ruins other bits of it purely on the basis of, well, it doesn't fit the story. And I get narrative causality, and I understand narrative causality is important, but fitting the two things together, you get less angry nerds. I think that's what it is. Yeah, I'm angry nerd mode. That's where I am just now. Not angry. Frustrated? Yeah. Frustrated nerd mode. There was one more rant I was going to have, wasn't there? It will probably come back to me. Yes, so lots and lots of things to rant about with Ancillary Sword. However, the other side of it is that the story is much better. Much better. The characters actually have some character this time round. Rather than being, just, sullen drug addict, Ancillary super genius. The characters, especially the other crewmates, like Medic. Medic's a really great, nice wee character, even if it is essentially just Bones from Star Trek. The book itself, has more characters and better characters, and I think that's due to the not abandoning, but the walking back of the gender-neutral nonsense that went on in the first book. There's much less of trying to hide everyone's gender, and there's much more actually describing the characters and giving them a personality. And I think that's to the benefit. It's definitely more solid in terms of characterization. I still think it owes a big debt of gratitude to the Ian M. Banks culture novels. Especially this time around. In the last book it was definitely use of weapons. This time around it felt a little bit more like a little bit of Consider Phlebas and a little bit of Player of Games, in the way that the person who's unfamiliar with the world is dealing with it and yet has a certain amount of authority to deal with things. And again, definitely it feels a lot like the culture novels. Culture light. The culture is definitely more hard sci-fi than Ancillary is. Ancillary is more, space opera. Much more space opera than the culture novels. And the culture novels are already quite space opera-y. So yes, to cut this relatively short, because I've already been going 15 minutes, and I said this was going to be a short one and then start ranting. Of course it is. Should you read this book? Should you read this book? Yes. Yes, you should. If you've read Justice and you enjoyed it, I suspect that you should read this book and you will enjoy it more, because I enjoyed this more. It, again, after the debacle of the Dark Tower and then the autobiographies I read, actually having a set of books where I was putting it down at night going, I don't actually want to put this book down, but I have to go to sleep. It's a good feeling to have. It's a really good feeling to have when reading. And I had that this time round. So, yes, good book. Very, very good book. I'm interested to see what she does with Ancillary Mercy, because it's the conclusion to the trilogy, and not much has happened so far in reality in terms of the Empire-wide civil war that they've been promising, with the Lord being at odds with herself. So I wonder if it's going to conclude. The blurb on the back says it's a conclusion to the trilogy. If it is a trilogy, it's going to be the dampest squib of a civil war ever, because so far, after 2 books, the civil war is kicked off, and the best anyone knows about it is, something's going on. Maybe the gates are closed, and no one's allowed to leave the system, and that's kind of it. Some of the palaces have been attacked, but essentially the world that breaks on hasn't seen anything of the actual civil war. So we'll see what happens with the third one. I think, again, it's 330 pages. I think the final one is 330 pages. So if she wants it to be properly epic, there's an awful lot that's going to have to happen in this. But I'm liking the length of the books. I'm liking the length of the books, actually. 330 pages. It's a nice feel for one of these novels. It's not too heavy. It's not too, padded. There we go, there's a word. Like I felt the Dark Tower was. It was seriously padded to get the word count up. This feels good. And it's not got the multiple characters thing that you find in a lot of other books. So we'll take Peter F. Hamilton as a good example. Peter F. Hamilton has maybe 6-7 characters in his science fiction novels, which means that his books are all 800, 900, 1200 pages thick, because he's dealing with the same set of events through 7 or 8 different sets of eyes, doing similar things in similar areas, and so his books are always different and interesting. They don't feel padded, but they're huge because they cover a lot. Because he's only got basically one viewpoint, which is Breck. 330 pages feels reasonable for the book. So yeah, I'm approving of the length. Definitely approving of the length. But I think it's one of these ones where you could forgive it being longer than a trilogy. Sorry, I'm just eating a fly. I have as well. Excuse me. It's the length of the book is fantastic. Somebody in chat, Cresso11, hello. How are you doing today? I've not got very much longer, Cresso. I'm pretty much just tying this one up just now. Where was I before I swallowed the fly? I'm the little lady. So the length of the book I think is definitely working. Compared to the Dark Tower, compared to the Peter F. Hamilton stuff, 330 pages I think is the right book, the right length of the book. Cresso, don't go. Okay, once I finish we can have a chat if you want, Cresso. Absolutely not a problem. Once I finish up the stream, I'll stick it onto the leaving page and we can have a chat if you want in chat. I don't know what you've just said. What do you think about Mindfugubuga? Not sure if that went horribly wrong, if you're typing on a on a mobile or not. But to finish this one, yes. Ancillary Sword, definitely worth reading. Definitely worth, especially if you've read Justice, go for it. If you like the culture novels, go for it. If you like Peter F. Hamilton, go for it. If you like your space opera, they're good books. They're well worth reading. See if there's any more response from Cresso. Not yet. So I'm going to do my little outro, and then I'll stick around in chat for a couple of minutes to talk to Cresso. So yes, this is reading for charity. We're reading for the Archie Foundation. 100 books in a year. He wants to talk about Mein Kampf. Right, okay. I will definitely talk to you about Mein Kampf on the chat, Cresso. Because the less I say in on video is probably better for everybody. So yes, reading for the Archie Foundation, 100 books in a year, and all done by donation. We've raised over £750 so far, and hoping to make that some more. The Archie Foundation are talking to me again about a little puff piece in the papers, so that would be quite good. That might get some more charity money in, which would be fantastic. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I'm on my way to talk to Cresso in chat. And I will speak to you all again on Sunday for... Wait, the right one. Ancillary Mercy. There we go. We're moving the wrong one round. Thank you very much. Good evening.